Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back.
So my guest for today's episode of Inner Work is Brandon Beacham, a thought leader, entrepreneur, author, philosopher, and truth seeker, and host of the very popular podcast, Positive Head Podcast. Since childhood, Brandon has been a serial entrepreneur, and in 2015, amidst his business success and 15-year exploration of the ultimate nature of reality, Brandon answered the call to share and speak publicly about his spiritual insights and philosophies. Today, he focuses primarily on helping people shift their perspectives to understand the ultimate nature of reality and create more of what they want to see in their world. So Brandon has released his first book. This happened in 2021, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. He is helping others unlock their own divine potential by gifting this book to the audience of any podcast that he's speaking on, including this one. So we are fortunate to receive that gift today, which you can claim as an audiobook or ebook by going to goldenkey.gift and using the code positivehead, just all one word, positivehead. These instructions and the link will be in the show notes as well. So welcome to Inner Work, Brandon.
Thank you so much for having me. And if my voice sounds a little crackly, it's because it is. I lost it a few days ago, and it's slowly coming back. But I hear you. I'm a little gravelier than normal, but that's okay. Maybe it'll make me sound rugged, you know?
Yeah, it'll give it a nice tone and quality.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What led you to explore the ultimate nature of reality, and what have you discovered through that exploration?
Great question. Diving right in the deep end of the pool, I see.
Yeah, yep.
So, what led me? I was raised in a conservative Christian household in Virginia. Is as normal of an upbringing as there can be, if there is such a thing as normal. And in my early 20s, I met 22 probably, something like that. I met a woman who claimed to have some intuitive psychic abilities, and she demonstrated some things to me that sort of supported that claim. Mm-hmm. And I was, I'd never come across anything like that. They didn't have, like I said, very conservative Christian upbringing that I was raised in. So I hadn't really been exposed to this sort of thing. And it really just kind of opened me up. I think of it as right time in my own growth as a, young man, and, started reading a lot of books and just exploring, hold on, what is all this? What's this about? Where, and then, that was all it took. From there, from there, started reading. Originally, I remember some things about out of body experiences and how you can have them. And then I told my brother about it, who, kind of laughed at me, thought I was crazy. But then he had one right after I told him all, well, this book says you can do it through, becoming lucid in your dream. If you wake up in the dream state, just realize like, oh, I'm in bed asleep and I want to leave my body, and you will. And he's like, well, that lucid dreaming thing, I think you're crazy, but that lucid dreaming thing happened to me when I was a kid quite a bit. And by talking about it again, it triggered it happening. So he went, one day from kind of making fun of me for, looking into this stuff, to the next day looking like he'd seen a ghost because he had an out-of-body experience.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool. And then from there, I can only think, because it is my dharmic path to do what I'm doing, that as I started to read and get exposed to some of these perspectives pertaining to the oneness of all things, and the fact that we're eternal beings having a human experience, and we just have amnesia to who and what we were prior to this particular avatar. And, then I think early on, like Conversations with God book trilogy, or now it's beyond that, in the late 90s, read those. And I was really fortunate to have Neil Donald Walsh, the author, on my podcast a month or so ago. And those were really big books in my own awakening. And like I said, from there, it just snowballed. And I started having a lot of synchronistic experiences and spiritual breadcrumbs, as I like to call them. And, here we are.
Yeah, that's an amazing path. Let's talk more about the amnesia that you mentioned. So what do you find for yourself? What did you have to remember that is true about you that maybe you didn't know? And then why do you think that amnesia is just something, it's like part of the nature of being human? Why is that? Why does that play a role?
Great question. Well, the way I see it is, you're in eternity right now. This is it. There, time is an illusion. Your 5th birthday party is happening on another channel. You're just not tuned into it, as well as your, 95th, assuming there's timelines where you make it that far. And it's all playing out in the eternal now. And we experience time linearly by sort of, resonating with a particular moment. But it's, like I said, it's all now. So, if eternity is now, and we're in the eternal now, and we exist, we are it. And it's a lot to be to be what we are. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart to exist. And it's, it makes all the sense in the world to me that, if you are godding, as to use Conversations with God way of book, a way of expressing it, you are an extension of Source, God, consciousness, the universe, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. It's the same energy. The consciousness that animates my form is the consciousness that animates your form. The separation between us is illusory in nature, and you have all the no time in eternity to experience what that means. And so, the thing, it's sort of a game of cat and mouse that God plays with herself, through us. Because without, a lot of people think, as you have a spiritual awakening and sort of start remembering a lot of your divine inheritance, if you will, that, it's all about love and light and unicorns and rainbows. And that is sort of the reason I believe reality exists. God, is love. Source is love. But without, I asked actually Neil, when I had him on my show recently, what's one of the most shocking or profound statements that God supposedly said to you? In these books, Conversations with God, the author Neil lost his job, lost his wife, broke his back, all within a few weeks. And he started writing angrily to God, just show me what I should do. Yeah. And he started getting these answers. Next thing you know, they reach millions and millions and millions of people around the world. And he said one of the most shocking messages, profound messages that God shared in one of the books was, in the absence of that which you are not, that which you are is not. In the absence of that which you are not, that which you are is not. So if you are love, in the absence of that which you are not, evil,
Yep.
You know, hate that which you are, love is not. So it's a necessary tool for God to know herself. And so that's the game that I believe we're playing throughout eternity. Remembering it's the breathing in and out of God, separation, unification, separation, unification, you know, and you can see it reflected in the cosmos. We believe it started as an infinitesimal speck of dense matter that is exploding outwards still.
Yeah.
The breathing out. One of the theories is how it could end at one point. If it does end, is it contracting back upon itself. So, in between birth and death is breath, right? And so we are, that's the game, right? And when you have eternity and you are love, but there's nothing else, no contrast to understand or really know what that means and experience that in a way, it loses its meaning. So it's all actually happening for love, which is a core foundational, reason for the universe to exist. And we're just in a dance, an eternal dance of experiencing, remembering, forgetfulness, and different variations of all the possibilities.
Yeah, that is such a good way of putting it. I also think of it as like existing, or I think when we tend to forget is when we are overly identified with the horizontal plane. So I call it the horizontal plane versus the vertical plane.
Yeah.
So when we're horizontal and we're just interacting, ego to ego or human personality to human personality, and just getting bogged down in the mundane details of daily life, which I get are still necessary sometimes and important, and can be very joyful. But I think if we're overly identified with that or attached to that or trying to control it or the shoulds or what should be happening or why is life going this way, that's when we tend to forget more. And then we have our awakening and then it's like we remember that vertical plane, right?
I like that. I like that. Yeah. I like what you said too. It's like, I always jokingly say, don't should on me. And it's, it's quite a dance of dichotomy. And, we're in a dual plane, experience at this point in eternity, which is, both like you and I are separate. And we can make an argument for that's a truth. You and I are one. That's a deeper truth that we're talking about here. And the consciousness that animates my form is the consciousness that animates your form, and the separation is an illusion. So both are true. They're relative truths, depending on the vantage point from which you are speaking. So, once you start to kind of play with the idea like, I create my reality because I am the creator and created rolled into one. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a bigger part of you, that has some say in, I always say our human is playing checkers and our higher self is playing chess. So, and so we get, I believe we have certain choice within a window, if you will. Like there's probably many versions of the character Brandon Beecham from this moment forward in Josephine that exist in many timelines that Source would want to play out, the variations. There probably isn't one where you're the center of the Los Angeles Lakers men's basketball team, right?
Right.
So there's that particular avatar does have its sort of its natural trajectory, and so I think, learning how to do what we can to create the outcome that we see as best from our limited vantage point, and then release that need or expectation or desire, this or something better, right? If what I trust that, this is what, from my vantage point, what I would like to see happen, this is what I'm calling in, this is what I'm moving towards, and I trust that there could be a better thing that I can't foresee that is woven into my dharmic path and is, necessary for my growth that I would never have the ability to calculate.
Yeah. And again, I think that speaks to the not being attached, right? To things having to be a certain way or the path having to look or feel a certain way. Because sometimes we think we're going right and then it's
Yeah.
hard turn to the left, right?
Yeah.
And we have to kind of flow and adapt to that. So what do we need to know about this game, quote unquote, game of reality, to be able to create the abundance that we want to experience in this new world that is emerging?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. But to add one thing to what we were just saying is, a lot of people say that expectation is is the enemy. Like lose expectation, and I don't believe that expectation is the enemy. I think it's natural for us to expect a certain outcome and move in a certain direction. It's the attachment to the expectation that's a problem. So set the expectation once again, what it is you see as best based off of the data points that you have, and then let it go. And as Abraham Esther Hicks, Abraham talks about this or something better, right? And so I love that. It's like, okay, this or something better. So to answer your question, what do we need to do to play our part in the dance as effectively as possible to reach, as I mentioned earlier, there's many versions of me and you from this moment forward. Which one, because source is infinite and plays out all the variables. Okay, so but which one is for you? What one would you like? Well, the greatest and grandest version, the one that's the most rewarding. So once you got to the end, like, wow, I really stepped into the timeline where Josephine realized her absolute fullest potential. And the good news is, time is an illusion. So source has already been there, done that, and gotten the T-shirt. As I like to say, it's like it's all already happened. So we be it to see it. When you ask how, you are in vibrational alignment with that version of yourself, not necessarily all the dirty details, but what it feels like to be that most expressed, fulfilled version of self. And the root of being able to step into that timeline, vibrationally, if you will, Bashar talks about this, where it's like we're constantly jumping in and out of potential timelines all day, every day, by shifting our vibrations, different versions of us that are slightly different in different trajectories. The number one thing I would say to get into the optimal timeline, most rewarding timeline, is understanding the truth of the who and what you are. And what that is it's so powerful, who and what you are. You are actually as worthy as any other soul ever has been, could be, or will be. There has never been a more worthy soul of all the best that life has to offer than you, whose ears these words are hitting. You are it. There is no other that's better. It's you and all your bumps and bruises and ugliness and things that you are not proud of, and any shame, all of that. You're perfectly imperfect. You are it. It is you. There's only one source consciousness, and you're it. So there is no worthier. There's someone, maybe an avatar or a character or a story arc of a human life where they've remembered and tapped into that worthiness, quicker than you did, and therefore it looks as if they were more worthy, but they chose it for themselves. It's not because there was some extrinsic worthiness that happened. They chose. You are the decider of your worthiness. And the quicker you can remember who and what you are and tap into that, that is the fast lane to all of your dreams coming true. You may not always get what you want, but you'll get what you need. And what you need is the greatest path for your soul.
Yes, completely agreed. Now you're using the word avatar, just in case anyone is unfamiliar with this particular use of it. Could you just explain how you're?
We've all seen the blue aliens in the show, and we're that now. Not that avatar. I'm referring to this character. Josephine, Brandon. We are avatars. We look a certain way. We sound a certain way. We have certain stories about who we are and where we came from and how we got here. I had an interview the other day on Positive Head with another podcaster, actually. He does a cool show called The Emerald. And he was saying, one of the and I've said and heard this before, the reason any of this exists is because God likes a good story,
Yeah.
And so you are, when I refer to avatar, I'm referring to your personality and your identification as a unique individuated soul.
Yeah, gotcha. So in this particular lifetime, right?
You got it. Got it.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, those are such great points. Let's talk about, let's say that if we do believe already on some level, okay, I can create my reality, I can create the abundance that I want, I can fulfill my dreams. But then those stories that you mentioned that we have about ourselves are kind of getting in the way of that. So the narratives, the stories, the place I come from means that I can't actually create my reality. How do we start to unravel all of that and get beyond it?
Yeah, you just said, I mean, our stories keep us locked into place a lot of times. So, you may have heard this before, but I call them jar jumpers. If you take a flea and you put it in a jar, it can jump. They jump like crazy. And can jump out. If you put a lid on it, they'll hit the lid and then go back down, and then they'll realize like, oh, there's a lid there. So they'll just sit there and jump only as high, just under the lid. Yeah. Now you can take the lid off, and what do you think the flea will do?
Oh, they just stay at that level?
Stay at the same level. They don't jump out. And so what's happened is you've been programmed to, by yourself, by your circumstances, by your family, by your culture, by everything. And if the little girl's told by her aunt at 6 years old, oh, woo, you got my big schnauzer, you got my nose, like, oh, too bad. And now the 6-year-old's like, oh, I have the bad family nose. Now all they see when they look in the mirror, the rest of their life is this story, right? Yeah. And so the job becomes to start to unwind the stories and to realize, and there's many ways to approach that, and, methodologies and subconscious deprogramming, because a lot of this is subconscious, right? And so finding a path to start rewriting, you're like a computer rewriting the software, telling new stories about who and what you are. And like I said earlier, the truth is you are as divine exactly as you are, with all the, imperfections. I mean, you see sometimes like a perfect model or something, like a mannequin or something. It's always creepy. Sure. It's like, perfect is like it's like, or music's a great example of this. Like, you take digital music, a lot of people will say, but there's something about live drums where he's slightly off or ahead of the beat, or, and it's not like set to a metronome, like a perfect robot. There's soul, it puts soul in it. And that's, the Japanese know this, like with some, or you had something hard happen. Well, when they break a piece of valuable china, they fill it with gold and repair it with gold. And then the idea is like, now it's even more beautiful than it was before it was broken. And that's who you are. That's what your soul is. So to start recognizing when, these scripts that are running, and then catching yourself and rewriting them. It's really powerful when you hear yourself saying this thing, and then you say, oh, hold on, I'm aware I just said this not very nice stuff in my head. Let me say that a different way. And then a lot of times on the path, people get really hard on themselves. They start wanting to, like, they know better. Like, now I'm beating myself up. Like, oh gosh, I know, but I shouldn't. Now you're beating yourself up for the work and where you're at. Matt Kahn, another guest on my show in the past, he said it perfectly. Whatever arises, love that. Yeah. Or how I put it in the 7th key in my book, love what comes. Whatever is arising, love it. Yeah. Like, so what we resist persists. What we accept, we move through. So be aware, go easy on yourself, be gentle on yourself. So often we're so loving to others, but we don't demonstrate that same love to ourselves. Yeah. And that's the number one thing I believe we're all here to figure out is self-love. Because until you've got that piece figured out, you're kind of stunted, right?
Yep.
And you can only do so much good. I can only give from a cup that's overflowing. And if I'm not loving myself, I don't have it to give. And so this is really where the work begins.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you bring up self-love. I just had a listener of the podcast write in asking about that. That she was feeling like she was, doing a lot of work on that, but not really getting enough traction in terms of developing that unconditional love for herself. So I wonder if you have suggestions on that, or how might that work? How would that work look?
Yeah. What I would say to that person is, if you are it all, if you imagine being an eternal being that is beyond, our brains can't really fathom fully who and what we are part of, right? But we can to some degree. And, just imagine being that incredibly powerful, beautiful, divine creator, source consciousness. And then and that's all there is. And it would make sense that at some point in the journey that you would want the contrast so that you can appreciate it when you come back to it. I talked to I always remember my brother. He didn't pay a ticket when he was like 22 or something. He didn't pay some ticket. He got it was some little silly infraction, but because he didn't pay it, they put out a warrant for his arrest. And he didn't know. And years later, he gets pulled over and they arrest him and take him to jail. And he's one of the most sensitive people I've ever known. And he spent days in jail. And I picked him up at 12:01. They let him out so they can charge for one more day. And so I pick him up late night and get home. It's 1:32 in the morning by now. And I cook him a Hot Pocket.
Yeah.
And to this day, if you ask him and he's had a lot of, Michelin 5-star meals, and what's the best meal you ever had? It was that Hot Pocket. It is the contrast of having been through something challenging and then coming to just even something as simple as a Hot Pocket now tastes incredible. Yeah. And so what I would say to the person who's not loving themselves the way they deserve to be, that is a part of your trajectory, and it's a gift that you're giving to yourself. And whenever you're done, not really seeing things clearly, it's actually going to be a great benefit that you went through that, because it's going to make you appreciate the truth of the situation, which is you are as divine, you are as worthy as any other being ever has been, could be, or will be, because it is all extension of you. You are it. You can't not be it. And so it's really, go easy on yourself as you go through the process. And it's, hearing these words is already an indicate. You couldn't tune in and hear this if you weren't a vibrational match for that which is like unto itself is drawn. Water seeks its own level. So you're attracting out of the infinite things vying for the listener's attention on the internet and beyond in this, media heavy world. Here you are tuning into this little broadcast, right? You know why? Because you're such a close vibrational match to it that you found each other. We found each other. So this message is a great indicator that you're already on the path. You're already doing it. It's kind of like the hardest part is getting the snowball rolling. Yeah. You wouldn't be hearing this if the snowball wasn't rolling. So congratulations. Tap into that feeling of, wow, look how far I've come. I should be really proud of myself. I deserve, all the good.
Oh, yeah. I think the heart is already opening, right? Even if we're just asking the question, how can I love myself more? I want to love myself more. The heart is already opening. And I think also those challenges give us so much compassion then for others who are going through the similar experience, right? Okay, can we talk a little bit about the book? So the Golden Key, what led you to write this book in the first place?
I've known I would write a book for a long time, and I had a bit of synchronicity or spiritual breadcrumbs around. I dreamed about sort of the concept of giving the book away and then allowing people, if they want to play a game with the universe by donating after they read it, they can. And then I went and I thought about what the name of the book would be, and the Golden Key came to mind. And then I searched, has anyone used that name? And then I found someone in the 1930s who wrote a very short little pamphlet called The Golden Key that was very similar, and he kind of gamified it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like a similar concept 100 years later, you know. Then I searched more up on the author, and one of the publications, the versions of it was republished in recent years on my birthday, July 28th. And I have a lot of synchronicity with my birthday. It's my dad's birthday and grandmother's birthday, and great died on that day, and on and on. It's like a 10-minute story if I tell you the whole thing. Meeting a soulmate on that day, and her partner before me committed suicide on that day, and his name was the same name as the little town that all my family's from with that birthday in North Carolina.
Yeah, like, you can't write it. You can't write it.
It's wild. It's wild. So I, after I had the dream and then went and sort of looked into the name, and then it was like, okay, yeah, this is something I'm supposed to do. And so, I just spent about 6 months writing each morning, and had some assistance editing for my partner, who's a wonderful writer as well. And she helped me to kind of put it out to the world.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, of course, you can't give us all the keys right now. If people want them, they can go get the book.
I could rattle them off. I don't necessarily need to.
Okay.
But I don't need to either.
Or, give us, do that, or the most important ones, however you want to do it. Yep.
I'll rattle them off, and then that'll intrigue you to go see what I mean by all those.
I know.
So these are the keys that I found to, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance is the subtitle of the book. And these are the keys that I found over 25 years of deep exploration that have led me to creating a life that I adore and am proud of, and continues to improve and grow, lots of growth. And so it's sort of like, it's a 3-hour, if you listen to my audiobook, which you can get for free with the code Positive Head, or 100, just over 100 pages if you read it. So it's sort of like, here's my 25 years of deep exploration of the ultimate nature of reality distilled into these 8 key breakdowns. And the first key is see the oneness. The second key is know the illusion. The third key is focus your flow. The fourth key is align your intentions. The fifth key is be. The sixth key is trust the mystery. The seventh key is love what comes. And the golden key, the master key that ties them all together, is master the youniverse. Master the universe.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I am intrigued by all of them. So let me see, which one should I ask about? Can you tell me more about trusting the mystery? And what do you mean by mystery?
Yeah, I love that one. It's funny. I got this one from one of my favorite shows in recent years. Is called Star Trek Discovery, and there's a line in it where the main character Michael Burnham is projecting into a future timeline or something, and she's like, "Trust the mystery," you know. And I was like, "Oh, that's such a profound perspective and statement." And it's I start off that chapter with a Chogyam Trungpa quote, and he said, "The bad news is you're falling through the air. Nothing to hang on to. No parachute.
Yeah.
The good news is there's no ground." And so it's, what it's really all about is understanding that you are involved in a dance that is all you simultaneously and much bigger than you simultaneously, right? Mm-hmm. Both are true. And so it's so vast who and what we are, and the narrative, our little story, that we're playing. I remember one of the most powerful spiritual sort of experiences that I've had in my life is, I was at an event, and this woman was staring at me and my partner. And and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just, something about your energy. I'm just like enthralled. And we're at a festival, a transformational festival. And we're like, oh, that's very sweet of you. And as we went to leave and, walk around the festival some more, we hear singing from inside it was a teepee. We hear singing, and my partner at the time looked at each other in shock because my partner had been using some plant medicine and things the months before leading up to this. And she would get into this state of like channeling this song that was like this ancient sounding melody. And she didn't know where it was coming from, and she couldn't stop singing it. And she's not really a singer. And then, so here we are, months later, we're at this event and we're going to leave the teepee after this woman's kind of gawking at us. And we hear singing coming from the teepee, and it's the same song. What? It's the same ancient sounding melody. We go in and the woman's in a full trance state. And, she starts adding words to it. I am your sister, your mother, your eternal friend. And felt like Gaia was coming through her. And then she snapped out of it. And she's like, I don't know what it came over me. After I spoke to you both, I went into this like altered state. And then all of a sudden, another man who was just in there as well, witnessing this whole thing. The energy was intense at this point. He starts having like a seizure. And we're like, what's happening here? And then he'd snap out of it. And he would just start bringing all these channeled messages through to me and kissing me on the forehead. And, and one of the things he said was like, everyone that you touch will transform. You have no idea the impact of, the far reaching impact of the little bit you do is great impact. And it's, I use this as an example because there's something so much bigger that in that moment, it felt like that being, whatever's coming through, could see the bigger, the ROI, the true ROI in life, ripple of impact.
Yeah.
Right. And, here I am, this little human playing my little role, doing what I think's best, and so it's so much bigger than us. And so you'll never figure it all out. But if you realize the truth that it's always happening for you, not to you, and it's happening for love, even if it's challenging and appears terrible from your limited vantage point, there's a bigger story arc there that you're not necessarily privy to.
Yeah.
But once you can get to that state of really knowing, I don't need to know all the whys, whens, wheres, hows. This looks not great. I wouldn't have chosen it, but I trust it. I trust life. I trust that this is something that love needs in order to be more, and know itself more. And it will all, in the end, be validated and reconciled in a way that is beyond beautiful. When we can see the full tapestry of the web that's being wove, we will weep at the stunning architecture and beauty of it all.
Yeah. Everything you're saying is making so much sense to me, because I don't think that creating our own reality and abundance and all of that, is about, I have to control all of the circumstances, right? Or I have to be in charge of the whole thing. In fact, you have to trust the flow of life, right? And kind of let go and stop rowing against the waves that are coming sometimes.
Right. Yeah. It's about doing what you think is best and learning to tap into your own inner guidance and intuition to make the moves that you can and play your part to the best of your ability and let it go. Because, how the future, rarely shows up exactly like we envisioned it. Right. But just that, the most profound part of this whole trusting the mystery is if you can really start operating your life from the vantage point of, it's happening for me, not to me. You're asking the question with whatever's transpiring. Why is this happening for me? What is it that this is offering? What is this that this can teach me? How can I grow from this? Now you start seeing it through the lens that will ultimately give you the gift behind, the silver lining of the cloud, if you will. And that, once you have that, you may have a moment of like despair or fear or, sadness, and all that's natural emotions, and don't resist that either. But very quickly, as you train yourself, and this is, I don't know, I can't fully see the gift yet, but I trust it's there. And I'm actually curiously seeking and looking and pondering when and where and how this gift will show up. And that then starts to reveal the lump of coal is actually a diamond in disguise.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, because asking the question, just the practice and the act of asking that question, what is this teaching me? What is this here to show me? Already is putting us in that role of the curious observer. So we can have a little bit more detachment even from the story, right? If we turn it into the question and then kind of waiting for the answer to reveal itself, I think it puts us in a whole different frame of mind, energy, attitude, perspective.
100%. It's kind of like you start to realize everything is sort of neutral by design. You know, it's like the scalpel, it can kill, it can heal. It's all, you know, I had a really challenging interaction with a business partner many years ago. And I remember when I met him, I kind of said to him, because he's this very powerful energy, very successful person. I'm like, I remember jokingly saying, I don't know if you're, you know, the devil or an angel, you know,
Right.
And the truth is both, right? It's all in, we're not a drop separate from the ocean. The ocean is in the drop. It's all in you, shadow, light, it's all there and necessary. So what part reveals itself is has a lot to do with where you turn your energy and where you focus. It depends, various potential timelines of how that neutral situation continues to unfold.
Yeah, exactly. It's so important to remember that, so we can play that game, you know, as effectively as we can.
As effectively as possible, and then
letting go.
Let it go.
Right. So tell me a little bit more about, how do you align your spirituality with your daily life? You know, because sometimes a lot of these ideas are kind of abstract or just at the conceptual level, but so how does daily life align with all of this? And how can people who are listening kind of do that too?
Great question. So if you go back, I'm almost to episode 2000 of the Positive Head podcast.
Congratulations.
Thank you, in 2015. And as you'll hear me say in it, if you take a listen often, is we teach best what we most need to learn. And so when I get asked that question or think about that, I instantly go to, if you listen to episode 1, you'll hear me say, hey, everyone, whoever hears this, if anyone hears this besides my mom, I'm doing this first and foremost for myself, to remind myself, and anyone who benefits is a bonus, you know? And so Positive Head is a great example for me of a tool to, like, having this conversation. What's happened here is we've spent the last 40 some minutes tuning into a vibrational frequency and pool together. And I am literally swimming in this energy of all the things that words just are symbols of an energetic something behind it. So things like this, talking about it, listening to something like this. I would imagine anyone who's been on this journey with us right now is feeling empowered and lit up and alive and optimistic and clearer than ever in their perspective on the hows, whens, wheres, and whys of it all, you know. And that's because they took the time to tune into something that was a vibrational match for them. And there's many versions of, you know, I'm one version of this information with my coloring on it, and you're another, and together we create a third. And, you know, and it's finding the things that really resonate with you. And it's just like food for your body. This is food for your mind and soul. And so listening to things like this, reading books that are resonating with this vibrational information. I remember Wayne Dyer used to talk about, you know, you can do the muscle testing where he would put something in an envelope and then you test someone by pushing their wrist down. And if it was like something bad for them, they'd go weak. If there was a powerful quote in it, they would be strong and without even knowing what's in the envelope. And it's a great example of the energy of the thing is there. So how do you swim in the vibrational pool as much as possible? Then, of course, there's your physical temple is a extension of, a lot of times people get so caught up in the ethers and spirit, they forget like your body is an extension of your spirit. And so how can I show love and consideration to my vessel, you know? And it doesn't mean you've got to be like going to the gym 3 hours a day or any of that, but come up with little, especially for those who aren't doing that sort of thing, it can be daunting, but do little things. I'm going to spend 10 minutes in the sun. I'm going to spend 10 minutes walking. I'm going to do a little yoga. I mean, there's so many things that are available. And like Joe Dispenza talks about, these little shifts in your habitual programming, it's like if I were to shoot a love bomb, a love missile from California, where I'm at, Los Angeles to New York, right? And I put in a certain trajectory, but then I changed it by 1 degree, one little shift. Now all of a sudden it hits Maine or Florida, right? Because that exponential growth over time, it stacks. So just little shifts in your routine will make a huge impact. If you take something that maybe is, you know, okay, you're watching TV an hour and a half a night. Okay. And maybe you had the story, I don't have time to work out. How about you do some push-ups and sit-ups for 10 minutes during the TV show? Just find little things to do to shift your routine. And then that stacks and grows and you know, ultimately leads you to a new timeline.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful advice. And ultimately, what I hear you saying is we have to follow our own inner compass, right? Of what resonates from moment to moment. And there's no one outside of ourselves that can say, this is the blueprint, this is the roadmap.
Come up with your own meditation if you want to.
Exactly.
You know, just the intention itself is probably the most powerful. I care enough and I love myself enough that I'm going to do this thing. And that in itself, like, you know, you will literally start, you're introducing new neural pathways in the brain, new energies in your system, new energies in your body. And it's not that difficult, you know, because we get all these ideas about what it's supposed to look like and be, and just taking the action of any kind that is has any inkling of self-love and positivity is super powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully one of those actions for people listening will be to go and get the golden key, right? That's a great place to start.
Great place to start.
Excellent. So can you share with people where they can find you online, all the places that you're in?
Yep. You can get the book, as you mentioned earlier, at goldenkey.gift. .gift. If you use the code POSITIVEHEAD at checkout, you can get the audio and or ebook. That's of course with the book. Positive Head, the podcast, is anywhere that you would find, wherever you listen to your podcast, you should be able to find Positive Head, and even the episode that we did together recently. And other than that, I'm not super active on social, but I am on social. Instagram is probably the place I'm the most active. So, you know, if you search Brandon Beacham, you'll find me there as well. My handle is optimistic, spelled like mystical.
Gotcha.
So, and the O is a 0. So 0 PTIMYSTIC.
Okay.
And
great.
Yeah, you can find me there. And
Yeah, we'll find
telepathically, I accept messages as well.
Good. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Well, excellent. I really appreciate you sharing your insights, and not just on this podcast, but everything that you have been doing and contributing, and all the work that you're doing, which I am sure has helped many, many people on their path of awakening and coming back to themselves.
Well, I thank you for the work that you do and being such a beautiful reflection. And like I like to call it the good kind of selfish. It's like it is in giving that we receive, because you'll find the opportunity to give away what you want for yourself to someone else. And that is how energetically this whole dance works. So it's the good kind of selfish. And so it's my pleasure and honor to be able to share and hopefully make a difference in someone's life.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That is what this podcast is really about. And I also started just saying, oh, only my mom's going to listen.
That's funny.
Yeah, and then it grew. So anyway, all right. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. Yeah, till next time, journey well.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope this conversation has been enjoyable and inspiring in some way, and I will catch you next time.